Hello, listeners and watchers of the Strategy and Soul podcast. Today, I am so thrilled to invite Aimee Takaya along as a guest for this episode. We're going to talk a lot about somatic practices and your radiance and how to bring that out more in your life to benefit a lot of things. We have a lot of details to share. Usually they're about 30 minutes, so bear with us while we get stuck into it. So I'm going to do a brief intro of Aimee and then throw the mic over to her. But she is a certified Hanna Somatic Educator, somatic yoga instructor, and a transformation facilitator. So tell us, Aimee, about what retreats, like festivals, what else are you doing?
Yeah, so I decided to go full force into kind of my business about 2.5 years ago. Uh, and I've been exploring different ways of sharing my gifts, sharing the work that I do. So some of that has been doing festivals. I did, oh my gosh, like 4 festivals last year as a body worker doing somatic hands-on work in the Healing Garden at music festivals, as well as being a presenter and sharing about somatics, sharing about, Hanna Somatics in my unique way. And then I also ran my first 3-day retreat last year, and I'm running another one in just like a week or so. And
Amazing.
organizing those, putting it together, having really my vision come into form has been so incredibly exciting. On top of that, I have a signature 6-month program, Radiance, that takes people through a deep somatic transformation over a 6-month commitment. And that has continued to flourish and grow since I launched it about 2 years ago. And then just exploring more ways of sharing this work, speaking opportunities, networking events, getting this out there, because most people don't know what this is. They either don't know what somatic is or they don't know what Hanna Somatics is, which is a very kind of specific modality within the realm of somatics.
And it wasn't
So,
a short course, was it? Just like briefly explain to us what that entails and how deep that knowledge is, because there's a lot that got passed down through those trainings for you.
oh, well, for me specifically, I started getting exposed to this when my father did this training. He started this training in like 2009 or 2010. And so he was already starting to share with me through the hands-on body work what this was. But I didn't really get it at the time because I was so involved in yoga, and there's a whole story behind that. But basically, I went to the training in 2016, and it's 3 years long, but I got an additional year because of the pandemic. So I got an additional year of practice teaching online and learning how to transfer what was an in-person education to a Zoom model, which was really cool and has benefited me tremendously as a Hanna Somatic educator, to feel a lot of confidence that I can guide people through movement, while they're thousands of miles away laying on their bedroom floor, and get results.
Yeah, it's
So
such a
yeah, four
unique way to
years.
learn something that's so physical and so hands-on when it is in person, to then transition that online. And so tell us about that process for you kind of moving into somatics from this yoga scene, and you were really prevalent in that industry as well. And then you've kind of done a bit of a shimmy and moved it across to something that's a little more elaborate in training.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first of all, I was a Bikram yoga teacher, hot yoga. So that training was also no joke. I think when I want to learn
Yeah.
something, I tend to go for like, what's a really big thing I can do versus
Yeah.
like, how quick and easy could this be? I tend to go the hard way. um, but yeah, the Bikram training and Bikram yoga in general, I would say, is not very somatic. It's very, known for being militant, and the teachers being kind of controlling. And I liked that at first. That was like the medicine I needed when I was 19 years old. And I was coming from like a lot of substance abuse and just feeling completely disorganized in my own head. And so it really helped me for a while to kind of outsource the authority to somebody else, to a yoga teacher, to, the boss in the room. And I took that on, as a Bikram yoga teacher. I definitely was a bit militant. I was a bit bossy, and people liked that. People came to get that. I mean, they call it like a torture chamber or something, right? Which is not somatic at all, right? So my background in this body-based practice was very much the opposite of where I'm at now, which is student-led, client-led versus kind of imposing a set of rules or a set of postures, and I'm not saying there are probably people out there who have had wonderful Bikram yoga teachers who are much more soft and receptive and, teach it in a way that is potentially more somatic. But I'm just saying that that's not how Bikram teaches. That's not how we were officially trained, generally
Yeah.
speaking. There are people who are doing something different with it, but yeah, that was not the approach that I was experiencing for the most part. And then coming into somatics, like, it was a huge awakening, and it took me a lot of time to embrace it, coming from this model of, like, you know searching for authority outside myself, um, feeling like I had to control my body, that my body was this thing I needed to master and command, mind over matter, all that kind of stuff. It does have a place in yoga lineages, this idea that we're supposed to transcend our bodies. And so reversing that and stepping into the idea that maybe all this pain that I've been experiencing in my body and in my consciousness is actually wisdom, was a really hard pill for me to swallow for a while. But the training was tremendous. It was 3 years. Like I said, I got additional year. It included a lot of clinical hands-on work and requirement to teach a certain number of classes so that I could demonstrate that I really understood the mechanics. This method is highly based on neurophysiology, so I had to write a neurophysiology paper to get my certification, which was challenging because, I was someone who had lived my life as a traveling yoga teacher. I hadn't done formal education in college, so this was definitely, like, challenging me on all levels, to do this training and to get my certification.
And what
But it's
was your
been,
drive? What was the motivator? Like, what was the kicker for you that said, you know what, like, there is this, but there's something more, aside from obviously your dad had already had a part to play in that by saying, this is legit, this is something to explore. And our parents, they know us quite well, regardless of relationships. Like, a lot of us have a parent that's kind of connected, even if it's very subconscious or subtle. And so I think it's kind of interesting that he's brought this thing to you and said, hey, here's a thing. But where was that turning point for you to really say, yes, this is now my thing, and this is what my mission is, to help other people with that process?
yeah, that's a great question. I did kind of let my dad lead me for a while, which I think was part of that pattern of, outsourcing to others. Oh, he says this is good. Oh, he says this is going to help with my pain that I was having in my body. And it was. I mean, the evidence was right in front of me in terms of this was very effective at reducing the tension and pain that I was experiencing. The challenge was starting to take that responsibility for the fact that I was actually creating the pain in my body. There were patterns of thinking and behaving, and the way that I was treating myself that were part of that pain pattern, right? So taking responsibility for that rather than feeling like a victim of my body, that was a big piece in my desire to go, oh, this practice is actually something that I can make my own, that can be part of me, and not just this thing that my dad's into that I've learned about, or just this thing that is a system that I'm now versed in versus how can
Yeah.
I actually, like, make this part of me. And that was through that sense of feeling the responsibility for myself, and how having that sense of ownership of my body and responsibility for my experience in my body was so empowering, actually, that I started to really want this for the other people in my world that I could see were suffering in similar ways to me, that were feeling disempowered by pain and tension in their body, that were feeling bogged down and overwhelmed by all the stresses that were constantly accumulating. And I was going, wow, like, I have slowly but surely been reducing the amount of that I'm carrying, and taking that responsibility for the journey. And I wanted that liberation for other people. And so that I think was the turning point, was actually experiencing the results in my own body and being connected to it in this really intimate way that took time, right? For me to feel this real charge to share this work with others.
It's beautiful. And if someone's listening and then they think, I kind of get it, but what are the symptoms? What are the actual metaphysical and physical symptoms that they see in their reality, where they're like, oh, maybe this is something that I need to explore? Is it my pain body? Is it my mental body, my emotional or spiritual body? And I also have a vibe that that's probably all interconnected anyway, regardless, because that's us as a spiritual being in a human experience. So like, talk us through that. How would someone really truly recognize that it's a thing that needs to be actioned, and how do they step into that? All right, I have this awareness now, I better take responsibility. Like, show us those steps.
Yeah. So pain in all of its forms, or suffering, I guess you could also say, which is like pain is inevitable, suffering is optional, right? Like the ways in which we perpetuate and continue our pain cycle and let it loop and loop, right? It's not just physical, it's mental, emotional, and spiritual. It's all of those things, like you said. We may just be in touch with one layer of our consciousness at any given moment. There may be a part of our layer of our aura that we're most comfortable in, right? Or most uncomfortable in, as the case may be, right?
If
So
you're addicted to
someone,
the suffering, yes, you're like, which one
yeah,
feels the worst? I'm just going to roll with that as much as I can.
right. Because we if we get accustomed and used to
Subconsciously.
something,
Yeah,
yeah, if we
exactly.
habituate it, it's like the
Hmm.
super swimming in. And so that's what we're used to. That's what's familiar. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
that's what's healthy. It doesn't mean
Hmm.
that's what serves us best. It's just what's comfortable, right? So I was experiencing a lot of physical pain, and I was focused on the physical pain aspect of, getting relief from pain, from honestly from overstretching and injuring myself in yoga, from having certain functional issues that were going on as a child, my feet like kind of pigeon-toed and turned inward. What I didn't realize completely at the time that I was focused on my physical pain was that all of this physical pain was connected to mental and emotional habits and spiritual pain of feeling disconnected from myself, disconnected from other people, and how that looked was focusing for that in that internal disconnection. A symptom of that is like looking outside of yourself for validation, for love, for acceptance as the rule. And as much as you try to kind of like turn that inward and love yourself, it almost feels like it, for me, I remember it really felt like this constant negotiation or something. It felt really hard to embody loving myself because I literally didn't have neural pathways to feel myself.
It's
And when
so
I,
interesting. When
yeah,
you say I didn't have the pathways to feel it, the key word that I had come through to me when you were mentioning that, and that I've personally felt before I went through a lot of physical healing to heal other areas within my subconscious and conscious mind, I was numb. I couldn't feel what it felt
yep,
like to receive. I couldn't feel what it felt like sometimes to even give. And not knowing how to kind of navigate that, because I was just trying to use my brain all the time. I was trying to talk to
yeah,
myself with logic, and I was overthinking and over analyzing everything from such an egoic perspective, but I didn't really have awareness of it. So
yeah.
how do people then move to responsibility after they do gain awareness that, hang on, some of this is resonating, and what do I need to do about it? Where can I, get them to a point that they are willing to take that responsibility?
Well, it comes through like creating those pathways, just starting to create them. You don't have to like make a plan even. You just have to start to create them. And sometimes starting to create them on your own, especially if you're in a lot of mental, emotional, or physical pain, is difficult. And that's what I mean, that was why it took me so long to develop a regular practice of this method on my own by myself. It took me a really long time because I needed facilitation. I needed someone else's regulated nervous system to actually demonstrate and show my body what it meant to be connected, what it meant to be calm. Because that's actually a big part of how we learn as human beings is through the connection with a model, right? And that's our caregivers in the beginning. And so you can think about that. If your parents were not particularly regulated and didn't know how to handle their emotions, chances are that you don't really know how to do that, right? There's also trauma and different kinds of things that happen to us that create a divide between our bodies and ourselves. We do become numb as a way to survive whatever happened, right? So if you're ready to like move through and into that experience of being connected, I mean, there's no better way than some kind of somatic work that invites you to pay attention and feel in. But somatic work is a big deal because you're touching in on everything that's accumulated in your life. And so finding someone that you feel really comfortable with, finding a modality that really fits where you're at and what your body's ready to let go of, what layer of your consciousness kind of you're ready to work with is so important. For me, I have a 6-month program that takes people through a really big transformation and really builds like lifelong connectivity in their body, reduces that feeling of numbness, right? We're going to experience it again because it's natural, it's normal, but we want to be able to have a way back in when life throws hard things at us, a way back into ourselves. And, I only take like 4 people in the program. It's intimate, it's small. I really vet the people. I make sure that people they're going to really feel good. This modality is going to feel really good in their bodies, right?
Mm.
But I'd say the first way to just kind of start this is do some research and read about the different somatic work that's out there and see if there's something that resonates with you. If you start feeling that little pull in your body, like, ooh, this is for me, that's a sign. Your mind might come up with all the reasons why, oh, I don't know if that makes sense to me mentally, but start asking your body what it feels when you read something, when you listen to somebody talk. Does your body feel a little bit drawn or pulled towards that thing? That's the first way that you'll know maybe this is for me.
Mm. And are you able to speak into what you believe is the difference within the physical body between fear and not desiring to move forward, and then perhaps it's just that you might feel hyped and overexcited? Like, is there some middle neutral ground that people need to find when they're looking for that experience? They read something and it resonates, and then they feel called and pulled to it. But is that also going to be coming from a different place within us, whether that be fear or, again, habits and addictions and things?
Right. Well, I think the function of fear is to point us to what we really are needing to survive or what we're needing to move forward. So, like, if I'm afraid of something, I often will take some space to ask myself, what is this fear orienting me to? Like, what is it showing me about what I need or what I haven't been getting or what I value? Right. Um, and so doing a little kind of like inquiry is a very positive thing when you're having a fear response to something, to do that differentiation of, is this a fear that's legit? Like maybe this is like a red flag or something for me, or maybe this is my system trying to alert me to uh, something inside of me that actually needs this. So I think that inquiring and not just assuming that if I'm afraid, it either means black or white, this or that. There's a wide range of what our fear could be telling us, right? And sometimes even just within that inquiry and getting that attention, the fear and the anxiety in our bodies starts to calm just because we're asking the question, we're we're listening, right? I think that when you get really excited about something, that's a good sign. And depending on, the type of person you are, and I know there's some people probably who've heard of like human design, or these different methods, astrology even, that help us kind of understand the way our energy works. For me, I do relate to human design. I'm a pure generator. And so when I get excited and something goes like, yes, ooh, yeah, that's for me, I've gotten really good at just like going with that right away. Whereas I know some people, according to human design, who are more like emotional processors, they actually need to sleep on it and they need to take some space to feel into all the different things that they feel about that. So I think that, how to make that decision of like, this is it, I'm ready for this is the person for me. I think it's individual. Some people are going to know instantly, right? And some people are going to need to take time. And if you want to try to figure out who you are without like understanding human design or whatever, look at your track record. Look at how the best decisions that you've made in your life, how did you process those? Did you sleep on it and think about it and come to a conclusion after feeling all of your feelings? Or did you just know in a split second, take the leap and bravo, like it was all magic,
aligned and perfect
Yeah,
and all the
yeah.
things that we desire it to be, and even like alignment and perfection, it still sometimes comes in the form of a lesson, so let's be real about that
Yes.
as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The
Yeah,
things that the mistakes that you've made, look at
right.
those. Look at like, oh, I jumped full force into this thing that when I really look back on it, there was a part of me that was really afraid and I didn't stop to listen to that fear and ask what that meant. I just went into it and it was a mistake. Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
failing forward. I love it. And I think like just bringing us to, as we edging towards the conclusion, I love to keep these like short and sweet, but we've talked about radiance earlier, and I feel like that's kind of a byproduct of this work that you're doing. And obviously it's the title of the program, which I think is amazing. But when people experience these healings that they go through, especially in their physical body, what are the transformation and results that they can kind of get out of that? Because I'd like other people that are listening that might not have those results yet and might not be aware of the transformation to see where the gaps are for themselves. So we've highlighted, I guess, the pain points and the pain body and what it feels like to be lost and feeling disconnected and like lack of sense of self and not feeling valid in our emotions and wanting other people to make decisions for us and lack of boundaries. That's kind of the problematic beginning. We've talked about taking responsibility and the awareness and creating more space to gain awareness. And so, following on from that, let's talk about radiance. Like, how do we get to that radiant part of ourselves that is really helping relationships and us feeling more connected to our body and our sensuality? And what does that look like and sound like for people?
So in Hanna Somatics, we work specifically with we call it the somatic center. So on a physiological level, that's the space between your rib cage and your pelvis, right? Which is this really central area. Like as a yoga teacher, you might say, oh, this is the creativity and the sense of identity. And these, our creativity and our sense of identity as moves up into our heart space where we're able to connect with others, moves up into our throat where we're able to express ourselves. So this is a really vital space that is the space we're working with in Hanna Somatics to free up the contractions that have gripped us there over time, right? Lower back pain, abdominal cramping, digestive issues. If you're if you've got tension through this middle part of your body, you're not going to move mechanically very well. You're going to move stiffly. You're going to feel more tired. It's going to be more laborious to literally move yourself through the world. When you reconnect and start to rewire and open up this space and it becomes supple and fluid and balanced, this is where your radiance actually starts to spread energetically. That's my experience, is that we start to have this creative flow. We start to have this sense of ourselves and who we really are, right? That identity piece and feeling safe in our identity, safe in our creativity, safe in who we are. And that starts to expand out, right? And if we're talking energetically, when you work with healing your physical body, which is something you already mentioned, it vibrates out into all other layers of our consciousness when we address the physical, right? It can go the other way too. When we work with our energy body, our physical body is affected, but sometimes the blockages on our physical body are so strong in their, the material reality that we're in, that it can be harder to penetrate that direction. The top-down approach versus the bottom-up approach is, very powerful. It's like when we address our health and our physical body, mental, emotional well-being, spiritual, potential for connectedness.
Mm.
So what you get to experience when you're living more in your radiance, when you're living in this place of being this empowered being, vibrating this energy out from your center, people don't have as much ability to affect and control you because you're not having these kind of, I guess you could say, fissures or fractures in your energetic body from feeling disconnected, from things being kind of all over the place and chaotic, which leaves these little spaces for other stuff to come in, for other people's energies and stuff to come in. So there ends up being more of this sense of being contained in your own energy field, right? In addition, you feel a sense of actually being able to connect with others, thinking again about that, moving up from your root to your creativity, to your sense of self, now into your heart space. That energy is now flowing, right? And so we can only be as connected to others as we are to ourselves. That was my big pain for a long time, is I wanted to feel that love from a partner. I wanted to feel cherished and loved, but there was like a wall and I couldn't let that stuff in. And it's because I didn't have the neural pathways to feel that inside my body. It was just so hard. Right. So radiance is also about being able to connect. And if you're talking about like a business or someone who's an entrepreneur, your connections and your ability to connect with people is your bread and butter. You know,
Literally, like
it is.
relationship building. We're
Oh
talking
yeah.
about being on mission, knowing our
Yes.
purpose within our career, how we want to connect even with our offers and potential clients. Like it's
Yes.
that's such a huge portion, a massive piece of how we need to be, like, I guess balanced, I think is a really good way, because I just also don't want anyone to think that they have to have this expectation of self that you're going to be like 25% there, 25% there, and we can just divvy it all up. Life doesn't really work like that. Our body and our systems don't really work like that at all times. It's not going to just be equilibrium permanently. And this amplification also comes with restrictions, because that's the polarity. You've got the contrast. It is this and that, and it is both and at the same time. Like, we can be all encompassing, and sometimes there's moments in my life where I haven't been able to actually work on somatics, and really had to just go to, yes, this is a mindset thing. I know this is just based on the way that I'm thinking, or I'm having like a spiritual awakening. So I know my physical symptoms are more in relation to that integration, as opposed to me physically harming myself and putting myself into situations where what I was doing with my body and allowing other people to do to me wasn't really effective or healthy. And so I just want to make it really clear that there is distinction between it. It's also all interconnected, and we just get to choose and pick and play with the thing that we desire to work with first. And if you had like a top tip for someone that is completely new to this, what would that be? And then another tip for someone that has already got a lot of experience with healing their physical body. What are the two that you
Yeah.
can like give as a last final takeaway?
So for anyone who's new to this, don't rush into it. Take it slow. Let yourself have space to metabolize things, right? Give yourself that space. Sometimes when we find something really cool and new, we just get like really excited and we want to just have all the benefits of that thing that we see we could have the benefits from now. And we get in a hurry about it. Trust that your body, if you start to engage with somatic work, your body's going to tell you when it's too much, when you need a little bit of space to process. Kind of going back to that idea that you just mentioned of like our radiance, once we experience this fullness of our being and this radiance, it's not like it's permanent and we're just this way now. There are times that things are going to get chaotic again and we're going to disconnect and then we're going to fall back into our old patterns, right, of how we operate. That is totally normal, expected, natural, right? In the beginning phases, that happens a lot. And you kind of, that's part of the learning, to learn, oh, okay, this, this is a bit too much. Let me backtrack a little bit and kind of go back to the basics, start with a smaller bite, perhaps, right? And then build from there, and then learn to dance with that need for expansion and that need for contraction, that need for sharing and that big energy, and the need to bring it back in and be quiet and go small and listen to ourselves and prioritize ourselves, so that when expansion time comes again, we're nourished, right? Then for someone who's been on this path for a while, who maybe has been looking into somatic work, my question to them would just be, with whatever type of work that you've been doing, has it been addressing the tight places in your body that don't seem movable, right? Because somatic work in general is very nourishing and can help the whole system relax. But if, even though you're way more relaxed than you were, perhaps, right, maybe there's still a stubborn muscle in your back, your neck, your jaw, right? That as the stress increases, those areas clench and clench. And like you said, it's mental stress, it's emotional stress, it's our mental patterns that are a part of this tightening up.
Yeah.
If that's going on, you might need an approach that's more neurophysiological. You might need to actually learn how to target those specific spaces in your body and find out what you're holding there. Find out what are the specific unconscious memories, experiences, beliefs, right? Maybe it was a car accident, but you weren't a blank slate when you had the car accident. You were thinking about something, you were feeling something, and then that car accident happened, and maybe you're holding your last relationship that ended around the time of that car accident in your neck. Maybe you're holding a belief about what you are in the world and how safe it is to be in the world in your neck. And so that's what that pain, that consistent ongoing stressful tense space in your body is trying to alert you to something that's holding you back, that's literally keeping you from turning your head or
Yeah.
literally getting up and walking forward in life. It's trying to get your attention. So that's what I'd say to somebody who's already been on this path is there's a lot of different modalities, and there is something, that's what I do, that can specifically target and open up those unconsciously bound spaces.
Fascinating. It's so good. And how can people find you if they're looking for more information, resources? Do you have freebies? We know Radiance is a 6-month offer, and that's a very exclusive investment. So what are the things that you've got going on in the next couple of months?
Yeah. So I'm working on a self-paced course, and that is also going to be running live a couple times a year, which will be 9 weeks, so less of a time commitment than 6 months. And so that should be out sometime this summer. I also right now in June, I will be opening June and July, I will be opening my calendar for free consults. I don't do them all the time, but I do them periodically. And so that'll be something that's available to people, 60-minute free consult to get a feel for what this modality can do for you. It'll come with free videos to do on your own. If you sign up for my newsletter, you get like a free class. And I just apologize in advance. The editing on it is kind of wonky. It's sort of got like a 90s almost infomercially feel. So excuse me while
I love it. I love it.
but it's effective. It'll give you a feel for this, and it's cute in its own way. So yeah, if you sign up for my newsletter, you get that. And yeah, I have a podcast myself where I have these kind of conversations, and you were just on my podcast. And so that's another great way to connect with the somatic work. If you scroll all the way back, my first podcast episode is just me talking about releasing my belly and all of the things that I was holding in my belly as a woman, right? And what it was like to start reconnecting with my somatic center, with the source, the space of my radiance, and start healing that space. So that's also another free, fun way that you can learn more. Yeah, find me on Instagram.
And all the links will be in the descriptions on both YouTube and all the platforms, starting with Spotify. So I'll pop those down there for anybody that wants more. And thank you so much, Aimee. It's been really nice to just get a really dynamic conversation happening about how all of that connects and bringing us back to radiance and back to, I guess, that homeostasis and that pulse of life. That's really where it's at, where we can feel, yeah, okay, we're here. All right, now we hold space. Let's amplify, let's hold space. And it just gets to be like breathing, really natural and easy.
I love that. Yes, very much like breathing, because breathing is an autonomic part of our nervous system. And that's what we want to get you back to, is we want to get your autonomic nervous system running in a way that is nourishing and supportive, right? Rather than draining, which is being stuck in fight or flight,
Yeah, all the things. I bet you we could talk for hours. So we'll wrap it up. And if anybody has questions, feel free to also pop them below on any comments. I'll also have reels going out, so you can comment there and find us both on Instagram. So we'll see you soon. Thanks for listening.